Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctifies us with his commands and commands us to engross ourselves in words of Torah. All right, great. We've cranking right along with Joshua, and here we are now in this chapter 13. You look at where we are in our program here. It's just probably a little bit more than halfway through, but we'll be looking at the starting to divvy up the land, as it were, among all of and we'll start out with the 2.5 tribes. It says, now Joshua was old and advanced in years when Adonai said to him, you are old and getting on in years, yet very much of the land is still left to possess. This is the land still left, all of the regions of the Philistines and all of the Geshurites, from the Sihor, which is near Egypt, to the territory of Ekron northward, counted as Canaanite. The 5 Philistine lords of Gaza, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron, also the Avim. In the south, all of the land of the Canaanites, from Merah of the Sidonians to Aphek, as far as the border of the Amorites. Now, those are the, that's a lot of names. We don't even use a lot of those names anymore. So where are they? Well, let's go ahead and we'll have even some more hard names. The land of the Gebalites and all of the Lebanon toward the sunrise, from Baal Gad at the foot of Mount Hermon to the entrance of Hamath. All the inhabitants of the hill country, from Lebanon to Mizraphoth Maim, all the Sidonians. I myself will drive them out before Bnei Israel, only allot it to Israel for an inheritance, as I have commanded you. So now divide this land as an inheritance for the 9 tribes and the half tribe of Manasseh. All right, so we've got that. Here is a map of the land and all of the areas that Joshua and Moses conquered while they were doing their conquest. That it's the area that they conquered and also occupied, because you can see up here that in Hatzor, this area right here, well, they conquered Hatzor. They burned it to the ground, and it was a very, very important city, but they didn't go down in there and consummate the deal, as it were, and they didn't occupy this land up here north of the Sea of Galilee. And it's kind of a rugged land up there. There's it's mountains and stuff like that, but they did not occupy that, nor did they occupy this land here around the Sea of Galilee. And then moving on down here, this the Jezreel Valley, with coming up off of Mount Carmel, where Elijah had his famous duel with the prophets of Baal, and it did not end well for the prophets of Baal. But this Jezreel Valley, which you can see right in here, very important areas that were trade routes, and they did not occupy those at that time. And so God is telling Joshua, he says, okay, man, you're old, you're getting old, you're up there. And depending on the commentaries as to how old Joshua would have been, he could have been approaching 100 years old, and he also could have been maybe in the 80s and so forth. We really don't know exactly. We know that he was 110 when he died, but that was just again, depending on which person you talked about, which commentator and the Bible scholar that you look up. Some of them said, yeah, he was, in his 80s. Another one said, oh, he's almost 100. And so at either rate, at any rate, I mean, that's kind of old to be tramping around in the at the head of troops and conquering stuff. So yeah, it's about time he's about time for him to retire, or at least retire to an administrative position rather than a general at the head of an army. So I guess God was reminding Joshua that, hey, because of your age, you don't have all that long to go. And you need to get busy with the task of conquering the land. But and now in verses 2 through 6, they list all of these areas that are left to be conquered. Now, the Philistines. Now they were, list the Philistines. Now these guys were actually not from Canaan. Ethnically, they were not Canaanites. They were from the Aegean Sea up around Greece and Turkey, and they were a fierce warring tribe of folks, or a race of people that they were sea people. They were called sea people, and they would sweep into areas and migrate into it, conquer it, and they would bring their culture, their religion into it. And so they were the kind of people that they were strong, and they we could compare them to some of the migration that's going on in and perhaps in Europe today, where a people group is just going in and just settling and populating and so forth. That's kind of what the Philistines were, and they were very warlike, as we know later on, because they were the nemesis of Israel, especially back during Saul and David, at those time, King Saul and King David. They were always having to go and do battle with the Philistines. And so the Philistines also, they developed iron before the Israelites did. Remember, the conquest of Israel was during what we call the Bronze Age, and a lot of their weapons were bronze. They were not iron. And so the Philistines, being as they traveled all over the place, they were on ships and everything. So they brought the development of iron into weapons, in iron weapons, into the Middle East. And they did this, of course, before the Israelites developed the technology to make iron weapons. So the obvious thing there is that a good old iron sword could beat up a bronze sword just about any day. So that gave them a political and a military advantage in many ways. So the Sidonians, now they were people up around Tyre and Sidon. If you look, let me see if I can find going back to a map. Tyre and Sidon is up here in the Lebanon region. Okay, so they didn't. The Bible is pointing out that, okay, you didn't get Tyre and Sidon, and remember these. Tyre was a very important seaport at the time, but we know that the Israelites were definitely not sailors. They had no history of being sailors and going out, and so that's why it's kind of just as an aside, it's kind of laughable when to me anyway, when people say that, oh yeah, the Israelites, long before Western civilization knew anything about them, they sailed to the New World, and they were the Cherokee Indians. So, I mean, I think there's there's people that actually go along. There's a major religion that says that the Israelites had come and populated in the area, and that they brought their religion to the Indians. But they would have had to develop a liking and lore for, a liking for the sea and its lore and all of that kind of stuff. And they just have no history of it whatsoever. So, it was not until Chris Columbus got together and hoodwinked the Queen of Spain into giving him some money so that he could have some ships, and they sailed across. Christopher Columbus, they say, was Jewish, and his crew, a lot of his crew were Jewish. But there again, that's 2,600 years later, after the conquest of Canaan. So, anyway, anybody want to comment on that? No? Okay. It's kind of interesting that in verse 7, God said, "Okay, I will drive these people out of the land," and he said, "I myself will drive them out before Bnei Israel. Just in the meantime, go ahead and allot the land to Israel, to the tribes, for their inheritance, as I've commanded you." He says, "I'm not going to wait for you to completely subdue all of the land, and then I'm going to give it, allot it to you. No, it's time, because they had been fighting in Canaan now for, depending on who you say, they've been fighting between 5 and 7 years to conquer the land and subdue it. I mean, we read about it in Joshua, and it's only a few. I mean, the whole northern campaign took 15 verses, and so you think, oh well, that was fast. No, it wasn't so fast. It was years in the making when they would conquer these lands and burn the cities and so forth. So anyway, Joshua began the task of allotting the land to the tribes, and it's interesting to me that we find no instance in the Bible where the tribal leaders of the various tribes then came to Joshua and said, Benjamin says, "Hey, wait a minute, Judah got a much bigger bunch of land than I did," and Dan would complain that, "Hey, I don't like it down here in the south. I want to go up north." And Asher's already there. He's got all the good spots, and you see no arguments or disgruntlement or anything. That we know that the half tribe of Manasseh and Gad and Reuben, all of those guys, they were pretty much shepherds. I mean, they were definitely pastoral, and they had asked Moses, "Hey, look, this land over here on the east side of the Jordan, it's pretty good stuff. I mean, it's all there's good grazing for our crops, or for our sheep and our goats and so forth. So we'd just really rather stay over here on the east side. Would that be okay?" And Moses went to the Lord, and the Lord said, "Yep, that's fine. You can have all of that land, but you still got to go and help your brothers fight on the west side of the Jordan and take the land," and which they did. They said, "Yes, we will do that." They left a contingent. You remember, they left and they went across with 40,000 soldiers. And so, anyway, this is a map of where the 12 tribes settled in, and there's some notes there, as to, okay, who was in the land before Israel came in and claimed it. And you'll see the say for instance over Manasseh, the yellow over there, where it says it was Amorite. That was the ethnicity of the people, and you had King Og. Well, that was Moses had defeated him, but they had 60 cities in that area, and then across the Jordan in where Manasseh and Zebulun were. Um, they had 15 of these. They were again Amorites. They had 15 city states, and that's where the King Jabin at Hatzor was, and so this little map just kind of tells what some of the where some of the people groups were, and then who took them over. But again, the the amount of land that was allotted to the tribes was based on a census, how many people they had. It's kind of like our representatives in Congress. The more people you got, the more representatives you got. And so it's interesting to me that you see Manasseh there. Wow, what a huge tribe that turned out to be. And that was one of the half tribes. Remember, Manasseh and Ephraim were the sons of Joseph. And so each one of them got an inheritance. And seemed like Manasseh just outbred everybody else in the whole, in all of the tribes. And so they had the largest population, and then they got basically the largest group, the largest land mass, as it were, of all of the tribes. So, any comments or questions on this? This is a pretty good map. This group. www.bible.ca/maps. You see it down here. I think you can see it on the bottom of your screen. They do a pretty good job. They do. I've seen it, pretty good research, and they make up some pretty nice maps, and they don't get all weird on you in terms of mapping and some of the things, like some people that put out these maps, they put them out as they would like to see them, not as the way the things really were. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and look at some of the other verses. Okay, with the half tribe, the Reubenites and the Gadites received their inheritance, which Moses gave them beyond the Jordan eastward, just as Moses, the servant of Adonai, gave them from Aroer, I don't know. That is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, and the city that is in the middle of the valley, and all the flat land from Medeba to Dibon, and all of the cities of King Sihon of the Amorites who reigned in Heshbon, up to the border of the children of Ammon and Gilead, and the territory of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and all Mount Hermon, and all Bashan up to Salcah, all the kingdom of Og in Bashan, who reigned in Ashtaroth and in Edrei, and he was left, and in Edrei, he was left to the remnant of the Rephaim. They're talking about Og there. For Moses defeated them and drove them out. All right. So what does that show us here? After all these years of war, and it was somewhere between 5 and 7, again, depending on the Bible scholar and how they particularly counted the years. And it was either 5 or 7 years that Joshua was on the march, and they were out there conquering the land. The half tribe of Manasseh and Gad and Reuben, all those guys, they're 40,000 soldiers, were finally sent home as per the promise of from Moses. Now we don't know if they were allowed the home leave, if they had been able to run home every once in a while and see their families, or not. We don't really have. There's nothing in the Bible that talks about that. But perhaps, after 5 to 7 years, you would think that these guys would have an opportunity to get home once in a while. But now they could go home in peace and stay home and not have to stay in the field in the battle. So the territory allotted to these tribes were the former kingdoms of Sihon and Og of Bashan. And so this would have been the easiest ones to allot, really, because Moses had already told them, okay, you guys can have your land there, and in fact, you can already settle there, and just make sure that you send your soldiers with us, because we're going to conquer the rest of the land. And that was the way that was done. So these guys basically had already settled the land. They had conquered, Moses had conquered these people that were there, destroyed them. And so the half tribe of Manasseh, Gad, and Reuben, they had a kind of a head start on all of the rest of Israel in terms of settling the land and getting situated. Now, there is, though, this one chapter, verse 13, kind of stands out. Nevertheless, Bnei Israel did not drive out the Geshurites or the Maacathites, but Gesher and Maacath lived among Israel to this day. And then to this day means as of the writing of the book of Joshua. So sometime later, and we don't know when that day was. And in terms of those people, the Geshurites here are people in the south. And I think we got, let me see if I put a map in there. There's a Gesher here, and there was also a Gesher way down in the bottom here too. But this area here, they had not really conquered those yet, and that's what Manasseh had. Manasseh actually took this whole area up in here, Makkah and Gesher, but they didn't drive them out. They didn't kill them all, and just, I guess, as it was Manasseh, the half tribe of Manasseh there, ended up just kind of absorbing those people into their, and you can see it right here. They've just absorbed them because that's where the Gesher and the Maacathites were. So you can see that Manasseh just kind of surrounded them and then moved right on in. Okay. But we see where that is. All right. So going on, only to the tribe of Levi he gave no inheritance. The fire offerings of Adonai of Israel are his inheritance, as he spoke to him. Okay, let me go ahead and we'll read through this stuff, because then I get back to the Levites. To the tribe of the children of Reuben, according to their clans, Moses gave as their territory from, and I think we okay. I got back to the hard words again. Oh, there was one thing I wanted to point out. This area here, Makkah and Gesher, all right, that's kind of known as up here, especially up in here. This is called the Golan Heights. And well, guess what? Back in 1967, Israel took that land as a result of the nation of Jordan attacking them. And they took it, they occupied it, and then just to hear the other day, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, said the United States will recognize Israel's sovereignty over that. They won it fair and square when they were attacked. They took the land, and so therefore, the way of man and battles and everything for as long as there's been man and battles. You know, if you attack somebody and you get beaten, defeated, and then the land that you lost it. It becomes the victor's land, and so that's I think that's significant that the United States did that. Donald Trump has that kind of confidence in knowing, you know, what is was promised to the Jewish people, and so he's working to get it back to them and recognize it. I mean, they already had it, but he recognized it, and on the world stage, that's a big deal. It really is a big deal. Okay, so going along back to all of these hard words. Okay, verse 16, their territory from the Aror to on the edge of the Arnon Valley, along with the city in the middle of the valley and all the tableland up to Medeba, Heshbon, all its towns, and on the tableland, Dibon, Bamoth Baal, Beth Baal Maon, Jahaz, Kedemoth, Mephaath, Kiryat Haim, Sibma, and Zerath Shahar on the hill of the valley. Going on Beth Peor, you remember what happened at Beth Peor? That was when Baal and Balak were trying to curse Israel. It did not end well for them. The slopes of Pisgah and Beth Jeshemoth, all the towns of the tableland, and the entire kingdom of the king Sihon of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon. Moses defeated him with its chiefs of Midian, Evi, Rechem, Sur, and Reba, the princes of Sihon who were living in the land, and Balaam son of Beor, the diviner, whom Bnei Israel killed with the sword among the rest of their slain. As for the border of the children of Reuben, the Jordan was their border. This was the inheritance of the children of Reuben according to their clans, the towns and their villages. Okay, according to their clans, meaning their population. Since they had a big population, they had lots of land. All right, and okay, the Levites. Now they did not get an allotment of land. All right, they would receive the tithes and offerings from the people, and Reuben. Well, I just want to keep on there with the Levites. It says that they. Well, let me look at the actual language there. Only to the tribe of Levi he gave no inheritance. The fire offerings of Adonai are his inheritance. That meant that we've talked about on the class and also in my on Saturday mornings that a lot of the sacrifices that the people brought in, a lot of the daily sacrifices, and then a lot of the actual sacrifices that people brought in were consumed by the priests. They were not something that that they came in and it was all burned up. Only the burnt sacrifice, the olah, was totally consumed in fire. All the rest of them, they would cut it up. Part of it would be burned, and then the priests and their families would have an opportunity then to eat that. And so that's an awful lot of meat that went through that. Went through the temple every day or through the tabernacle. Of course, there were also a lot of priests and a lot of people in the Levitical line, but they also were to tithe to the Levites, and we'll get into it later on where the Levites had their cities throughout Israel, and these were called cities of refuge. And I don't want to get too much into that because we will cover that at a later date as to what these cities of refuge were, how they were set up, and so forth. But the Levites had a little strip of land around all of these cities where they were supposed to live they had like 1,500. I think that's the amount of it. Is 1,500 feet around all of these all of these cities that they were then allowed to graze that land or make crops on that land or vineyards or whatever it was. That was their land to use. So that where they were, the priests and the Levites only served in the tabernacle or the temple on a rotational basis, and so they did that later on. But in the meantime, for those 48 weeks out of the year that they weren't serving in the temple, or however many 40 some weeks that they were in their own homes, they tended crops. They did their own things to provide for their families, and so the Levites didn't have large groups, large bunches of land, but they did have something that would allow them to live. Plus, then the people were supposed to tithe to the Levites. Now, we don't really know. The Bible doesn't really spell out how well the people obeyed. I suspect that if we took the history of the Jewish people and saw, and just kind of looked at how well they obeyed in other things, I kind of suspect that the tithes and offerings were pretty sketchy for the Levites. So it's a good thing that they had at least that 1,500 feet around the cities so that they could grow their own crops. Otherwise, it would have been a little bit scarce for them, I suspect. But that's the skeptic in me. Now, Reuben received the first allotment. Officially, he received that first allotment. Why? Because he was the firstborn of Jacob. You remember that Leah had like 4 sons before Rachel got any son or anything, and so as the way that the Middle East was back in those days, that Reuben, he got the first allotment, and but again, he got his first, but he didn't get the choicest land, or he didn't get the first bunch or anything. It was assigned to him. Okay, this is where you're going to be, and but it was pretty good land, actually. The area that he got, if you look at it even today, it's a heavy agricultural land, and it's not bad if you've ever been over to Jordan, and we've been over there and seen some of this area. It's not bad. It's a lot of orchards and vineyards and stuff. So Reuben did get a pretty good piece of land, and he got it first. And his territory was that first that former kingdom of the king Sihon. Who was an Amorite. All right, you can see here Reuben got this batch right here. Okay, and there's and even up to here. Now, this is the land that's actually pretty good. This stuff back here, it's a little tough right up in here, but right along the Dead Sea, there is water that runs through there, and there is agriculture right along there. And if you get, of course, in these areas down here, where the Moabites and the Edomites and so forth, that's pretty tough living down there, because I think we got, if I'm not mistaken, you got I'm having a senior moment here. The city that they carved out of sandstone down there. Okay, somebody help me out. But it's where Israel's supposed to flee to in the tribulation. But it was a big city at that time. But it's way
Petra.
down there. Petra. Yeah, thank you, Pete. I don't know why I was having just a senior moment there, and I've actually been
I
there.
couldn't remember it for a minute either.
I've actually been there, and I walked all the way into it, and then all the way up and over the top of the mountain that's over Petra, and then down another pathway. We spent an entire day hiking on Petra. I should have remembered that, but that's okay. Sometimes things just kind of go. Anyway, that's where Reuben got his inheritance. Okay, so then we go to the tribe of Gad. Now, Gad is he was, let's see, Gad was the son of Leah through her handmaiden Zipporah, I believe it was, or yeah, I think that's what I've got it someplace in my notes. But so anyway, he was still from the Leah and her side of things, and so Moses gave that to Gad according to their clans, again, according to their population. Okay, Jazer, all the cities of Gilead, half of the land of the children of Ammon, up to Aroer, and which is near Rabbah. Of course, I knew that it was near Rabbah. Sure. From Heshbon to Ramoth Mizpah and Betanim, and from Mahanaim to the border of Lidbir. In the valley, Beth Haram, Beth Nimrah, Sukkot, and Zaphon. That is the rest of the kingdom of King Sihon of Heshbon, with the Jordan as its border to the lowest part of the sea of Chinneroth on the Jordan eastward. This is the inheritance of the children of Gad according to their clans, their population, the towns, and their villages. Okay, so there you go. Yeah, Zilpah, not Zipporah. Gad was born to Jacob's wife, Leah, by her surrogate, Zilpah. And again, according to their clans, meant their population. Those that had the most people got more land, and because then it was supposed to be equitable to the person, okay, down to the personal level. It wasn't equitable to the tribe as a corporate entity, because obviously some tribes got a whole lot more, some tribes got a whole lot less. But when you looked at it down to the personal level, to the man level, then everybody got, it was more equitable at that point. Okay, so God was trying to be very equitable here, and each person would get his 40 acres and a mule, or whatever it was. Okay, so here we'll see where Gad was from this river here, the Edrei, and the city Edrei, and down here to Sukkot, and if you'll remember, there was also a Sukkot down in Egypt and in the Sinai. So it was, it's like where we have that city east of Dallas called Paris, and then they've got some little town in France called Paris too. So common names throughout the area. All right. So any comments or questions so far on that? We're just moving right along here. So finally, we get to the half tribe of Manasseh. Now it says the half tribe of Manasseh, where Moses also gave inheritance for the half tribe of the children of Manasseh according to their clans. Their territory was Mahanaim, all of Bashan, the entire kingdom of King Og of Bashan, and all of the tent villages of Jair, which are in Bashan, 60 towns. Also half of Gilead with Ashtaroth and Edrei, the cities of the kingdom of Og in Bashan, were for the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, for half of the children of Machir according to their clans. These are the inheritances that Moses apportioned in the plains of Moab across the Jordan to the east of Jericho. But again, they say again, but to the tribe of Levi, Moses gave no inheritance. Adonai, God of Israel, is their inheritance, as he had spoken to them. All right, so you see in the map again, same map. I just moved it around a little bit. You had Manasseh up to here. This is the former kingdom of Bashan, and so in this area here, there's Golan. So this is the Golan Heights here, and it's now Israel. Interesting. And there's a little bit of Dan. Dan had a little inheritance right there, and then they also had this inheritance down here. Now later on, the people of Dan moved on up in into this area too. I think they were there was some population movement. Maybe that's the little enclave there that they were talking about. But then we'll actually get into some of these other in the coming weeks. Where Asher is going to dip his foot in the oil and so forth. So, but there you have it. All of the 2.5 tribes that got their land over there on the east side of the Jordan. And then next week we're going to move over on the west side of the Jordan and see what the other tribes got and what what may be some interesting stuff there. So we're ending up a little bit early today. Didn't want to jump into a whole nother chapter tonight because